Hey, I'm Reggie Ponder, the Real Critic, and this is the Real Critic Roundtable where Black critics come to discuss, debate, and have some fun. I'm outnumbered today because we got the women in the house. We have Miss Woods and we have Miss Davis, and we're going to get into some really, really good films. I'll start off with you, Katia, just to introduce and tell us a little bit about where people can find you.
Hey everybody, Katia Woods, Cup of Soul Show. You can find my reviews on cupofsoulshow.com as well. And there's also links to, any work that I've done outside of the site. I also have a panel coming up for NABJ regionals that I moderated on, being Black press and publicists navigating the red carpet. So NABJ regionals is coming up next week, the week of Thanksgiving. I know it's hard to believe that we're in Turkey Week, and all of that. And I'm just happy to be here.
Well, we're always happy to have you, and coming new to the table is Ms. Davis. Please introduce yourself, tell us where people can find you and connect with you.
Hi, I'm Jonita Davis. You can find my stuff at theblackcape.com. And you can find me at Jonita L. Davis anywhere on socials. And I'm really, really happy to be here. I really don't have anything much coming up except more reviews. And this is my first award season. So I'm getting all the stuff in, all the stuff. And I'm excited. So I'm excited to be going into award season.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Award season is crazy.
It's gonna be longer. It's gonna, how normally it feels like long, it's gonna feel like a whole year this year.
It is definitely going to feel like a whole year. I will tell you, we put a lot of films on our docket to talk about today. I'd be remiss to say that we're missing Mr. Sean Edwards today. Had a little emergency, so and that's messing me up a little bit because now I'm outnumbered and this is not good. But I guess now I can feel how Katia feels sometimes on this platform. So we're gonna get right into it. We'll get into our first film, and so I'll ask you, Katia, to bring in this film, which is Uncle Frank. Tell us what this one was about.
It's about a man who grew up in the South, the Bible Belt, and he's gay, and his family, not all of his family knows, and he comes to terms with it when his father passes. It brings up a lot of emotions, why he hasn't seen his family, why he doesn't really interact with him, and a lot of this is catapulted by his niece, who is fascinated because he lives in New York, and he teaches in New York, and so she wants to know more about her uncle, but in her learning more about her uncle, she learns about his other life, so to say.
She learns more about her uncle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so what did you feel about this one?
I liked it. I mean, at first, there's another movie about the South that I wasn't too keen on, so I was like, oh gosh, are we getting like the gay version of this? So my expectations weren't really high, but I like this. I mean, I think, we still think that although we've become more comfortable as a society and we have mainstreamed the LGBTQ community, but we also have to accept, I mean, especially with everything that's going on in our country, there's still people out there who think that, it's a sin and that there's something wrong with you. And there are people who literally had to separate themselves from their family and, for lack of a better word, create their own family, like their own substitute family, in order for them to find their way. But also this other thing is also that I think that the movie did is don't judge a book by its cover. Sometimes the people that you think are not going to stand with you are the people that stand harder for you than the people that you think are supposed to stand.
You are really bringing in. So I want to mention a couple of things. Firstly, this is set in 1973. So, but what's interesting is still relevant, as you just mentioned, still relevant today. I love this young lady who played Beth, his niece, Sophia Lillis, I think her name is. And I love the relationship between the two of them. On the screen, these two people, I mean, it felt so natural of them talking to each other, learning about each other and challenging each other. And then when you threw in his significant other, which is Wally, I, I think the three of them really made this movie. And what I saw here was how the challenges in being gay, which we've seen before, but I think that they looked at it from a different perspective. And I like the fact that the Wally character had the same challenges, but didn't give Frank the same leeway. If you understand what I mean, didn't give him the same leeway. And I like that because I'm like, come on now, Wally, you know how it is trying to present this to your family, but yet you don't understand that Frank is going through it. So there was a lot that I liked about it. Jonita, what did you think about this one?
I like the fact that they made Wally Muslim, and so that's a big thing in the South. I mean, he might as well be black. So doing this, and presenting those challenges to me, it felt like Wally was just kind of, like, okay, I know it's bad for you, but my story. You know how my people are. I could die. So I like how they presented that dynamic and just kind of layered it in there. It was just another part of Wally's argument, not a huge, not like a huge stand that the whole film was making, about it. The whole film actually to me hit some really great points, but the main point seemed to be just family, like Katya said, the people that you think would support you in your family are the people who are not, and the people who you don't even expect are rooting for you the whole time.
And what was, Jonita, what was interesting to me is that there were people, to both of you guys' point, that you wouldn't think that would support you and supported you, but there were people who you thought wouldn't support you and didn't support you. So you weren't exactly 100% wrong. There's still those people out there, and I think what it did, Katya, is it really showed how complicated it is, how complicated in this maze that Frank had to try to work through. He had to work through some stuff with his family. He had to work through some stuff internally with himself, but he also had to work through this whole issue of just wanting and needing that approval from his dad.
Oh, absolutely. And on a side note, the young lady is the stepdaughter of a girl I went to high school with. True story. Like really like 6 degrees of like separation and all of that. But I think also is I'm a firm believer because I know within my family, my sister is gay, right? I knew she was gay. We didn't talk about it because to me it was like I needed her to be comfortable and come to terms with it before I was like, okay, I know you're gay. Do you know what I mean? And our conversation went super smooth, easy breezy. It was hard for me to understand. And I think my parents were in denial. I'm like, if I figured it out and I left the house because there's an age gap between my sister and I, that's 14 years age difference. And I hadn't lived at home, but you're living with this girl every single day and you're telling me you didn't know, you didn't figure this out, or there's a denial portion about it. So I'm a firm believer that, there are people who are like me, who are like, okay, I'm going to let you come to terms with it and work it out. And then, we'll address it when you want to be address it. Because to me, I don't feel like it's like a disease or like you went to jail or something like that. But then there are people who are just like, you know what? If I don't acknowledge it, then it's not real. And I feel like that's why when, not to give a certain portion, but that's why when his mother said, a mother knows her children, I'm like, yeah, your kids, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I also think it's hard when you're in a relationship, right? And you may be the more accepting parent and you're like, I'm not going to choose between my husband and my child, which I think is something that, again, we got to remember it's 1973.
That's right.
2020, right? So women's roles were different, very different. So I think, in her mind, it gave her the freedom to be able to go, okay, now I don't have to deal with this man, this other entity anymore. I can love my child freely. And I think that's
No.
something else I think we as partners have to get better at. We have to advocate for our children. It doesn't mean that you don't love your spouse, or it doesn't mean you don't love your partner. But right is right, is wrong. We either love our kids, we can't love parts of our kids, or you gotta go.
Yeah, no, I think you bring us some good points. Jonita, I'll let you jump in here.
Well, I mean, I'm a mother of my daughter came out when she was 14, and I knew, like you said, I knew, but it was like, this is something she'll tell me in her own time, which she did, and it was not a thing. I mean, she actually expected more from us, and I'm like, okay, what do you want me to
have a party?
I mean, yeah, I mean, we can we can go to the pride parade. I mean, we can do whatever you want to do, but she's like, no, just never mind.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and that's really that's really interesting because my one of my youngest is gay as well, and I will tell you that it's funny listening to you women talk about it, because I didn't even think about it. I wasn't trying to think about what was going on with you sexually or anything of that nature. So I don't think that I supported. I made it easy for her to come out, because maybe just my approach. So I actually understood that I wasn't like the dad in that film, but I understood the need for that validation from your dad and that type of thing, because I had to come around to be really supportive. So I really understand what you're saying, Jonita, in terms of they wanted more. It's like, come on now, just saying okay is not enough. I need that affirmation. I need that love. I need you to envelop me in a way that Daddy didn't know how to do at that point in time. So I really identified with this film. I think this is a absolute watch. It was every conversation. I don't think they wasted any conversation in this movie. So for me, this is a watch. Jonita, is this a watch for you?
It is for me. It shows the different degrees of acceptance. And it also shows how one person can just clog the works and just make the entire family toxic. I think that's important for us. It's definitely watch.
Excellent. Katya.
Oh, absolutely. You know what I mean? And hopefully, again, it will inspire you to open up your mind more and to understand that, you don't want to lose somebody great in your family because you're not willing to push forward.
Excellent. Katya, we're going to move on to our next film, and you actually made me watch this one because you put it on the list, because it was not on my list. And I'm not going to have you talk about it. I'm going to have Jonita talk about this one, tell us what it's about. And this one is The Life Ahead. So Jonita, could you tell us what this one's about?
This was a cute little movie. It had a lot of interesting stuff going on. It was about this boy. His name is Momo, and he's from the Sudan, and he's this really cute boy, and he's an orphan. He doesn't have any family. He works for this local drug dealer, and he lives with this Jewish woman, but he also is being mentored by a Muslim man who makes rugs. So he's got this little community that's building around him. There's another woman who's a sex worker, and that lives in the building, and they all just sort of come together and make this family of sorts for this boy that's protecting him. And I don't know, just the moments of joy of this, every time he laughed. I mean, in this movie, every time he was happy, it made me happy. It was like the purest Black joy. And I just really, really thought that this is one of those films that I think that a lot of people may think is a little slow and they may not get. But I think that if you sit with it, I think there has a lot in it too, for a lot of us. I mean, there's the religious thing, and there's colorism, there's all of these pieces. I mean, one of the sex worker is transgender, so you've got all that stuff in there too. There's a lot of different little pieces and lessons in it.
I agree. I will tell you is that so every week I send out what movies are we going to talk about, and Katya and Sean, they send some movies. I'll be like, I'm not going to watch that one, and so that's okay. That's okay because this one, when you take a Sophia Loren, and I don't want to butcher his name, but I think it's Ibrahima Gai, who played Momo. When you take the two of them, they dominate the screen here. I mean, they are so captivating. Their relationship between each other, and then Jonita, you talked about all the other stuff he did. When he was by himself, he was captivating, and when she was by herself, she was captivating. She was like a mother, a provider, a teacher, just a friend. And I love those two characters. And then when you surround it with all the other people, it made this extremely interesting. Katya, you told me to watch it. So what's your thought on this one?
I mean, this has been a really good year. And I think we're continuing to push this conversation forward. Black people are global, right? This movie is in Italian. It's not in English. Mm-hmm. So it's in Italian throughout. Yes, we have subtitles. And he's Italian. The little boy is Italian, Muslim. He's Muslim in real life. This was directed by Sophia Loren's son. So you have a family dynamic within making this film. I think the only reason she did it is because her son was directing it, right? And also, again, it shows you the plight of Black people, refugees, immigration, and everything. And these two odd people that on paper, you're like, what do they have in common? Why would he feel comfortable with her? Why would she want to mess with him? Because he came with a whole heap of problems, especially with her being older. But because they both have gone through struggle, they've gone through loss, because they don't have what is called traditional family anymore, they in turn recognize that in each other. I also like that they didn't shame the sex workers. Do you know what I mean? Too often in these movies, we present people who do sex work as unintelligent, as dirty, as not valuing themselves.
That's such a great point, Katya. And I just want to say that is such a great point. There was nothing there that made you think that these people were bad people in terms of the sex workers. There was nothing that they put in there. And I'm just so glad that you mentioned that point. I continue. I just had to say that because that's a great point.
Important, do you know what I mean? And also Sophia Loren's character, her not shaming anybody. Like she understood it, right? And sex work is a huge thing. It's a huge part of why the Italian government is very, very strict and very disconcerting when it comes to immigrants from certain nations, because they know they're coming to Italy and a lot of them are not going to be able to get, work and stuff like that. So they're going to end up being sex workers. So that's in itself, it's a real theme in Italy. But again, the point is, this boy is not a victim, and this wasn't a white savior movie. He stood on his own ground, and he knew who he was, and he was smart, and he understood the different pieces. He also understood that drug dealer wasn't really for him. He was more or less what the little boy could do, because he was a hustler. Do you understand?
And what you show me on that, Katya, is you talk about how Black people is universal. That's universal. That this guy was a hustler. Jonita, jump in here.
Yeah, that's the one thing that I saw that guy and I was like saying, don't go to him. I'm thinking this he's gonna end up trapping this little boy but the boy was smart. He knew exactly what this man wanted. He knew exactly how much to give him, and he knew exactly when to fall back. And I really liked that. And about the relationship with Sophia Loren, she's a Holocaust survivor, and with him being a refugee, they kind of, I think that clicked with them. He knew exactly what she needed when her moment came that she needed help. He knew exactly how to help her when no one else did, because they had that refugee connection.
And what was really good about it was that I say every year, and Katya, I think you watch many more movies than me. I don't even know how you do it, but when you tell me you watch 100 documentaries, I'm like, man, if I get in 15, 20, that's about it. But the thing is that there's always some angle on the Holocaust that someone is able to bring forth. And this was a different angle. This didn't preach the Holocaust. It didn't talk about the people who had died. It didn't give you facts and figures. It just talked about the internal struggle that she had, and it transposed that internal struggle to, and you said this, Katya, what he was going through. She could understand these other kids because she had gone through struggle, not the same struggle, but she had gone through struggle, and I think that was important.
No, it's like Jonita said, it's a movie that's not going to be for everybody because you have to be patient and you have to let the movie lead you, right? We're in this microwave society. If we don't get it in the first 40 seconds, a lot of people drop off. But it is like and as you move along, you want to know more. And the little boy, I think this is like his first major project, from my understanding. Correct me if I'm wrong. He is just mesmerizing.
Mesmerizing.
He is.
And you believe this. I always tell people, like, these types of stories, you gotta believe the people that are taking you on this ride. And I was all in. It's also nice to see that Sophia Loren, I believe she's like 86.
86.
She's still like, this skill set is there. And some of the best performances this year are coming from people 70 and over. Facts.
Yeah.
So this idea that you can't still be mesmerizing, that you can't lead, that you can't give us something when you're over the age of 60 is BS.
Yeah. So this one, you said it's not for everyone. I wish everyone would watch this one. I thank you for putting it on our list for this week because it had so much and it was so universal. I will say this: if you watch this film, don't blink. You need to read, because my daughter would turn and look at her phone or whatever. You can't do that for this film because the discussions and the stuff that's happening is really important. And so you do have to read the subtitles. For me, this is a watch. Jonita.
And it's a watch for me.
Excellent. I know what you're going to say, Katya, so forget it. Forget it.
Sophia Loren, like, listen, give them their flowers while they're still here, you know?
Excellent, excellent. All right, so we're going to move into this next film, and I guess I'll talk about it. My commentary for this week was going to be, when do we start Christmas? Do we start Christmas in September? Because there are movies came out so early with these Christmas movies. I'm like, for real? Come on. I'm okay that now we're getting around Christmas, because can we get past Thanksgiving? That's all I'm asking. This is just a guy from Chicago saying, hey, can we get past Thanksgiving? This week's film is Jingle Jangle. And this is a David Talbot film. And it is about this legendary toy maker named Jingle Jangle, and he's played by Forrest Whitaker. This guy is magical. He's the greatest inventor in the world, and people come from all over to see his creations. I mean, his toys and gadgets and all that type of stuff from kids and adults. But his apprentice, who's played by Keegan-Michael Key, steals his greatest invention and all of the inventions that he's written down for life. Steals them and becomes the greatest inventor of all time, and leaving Jangle to his own devices. He becomes just a guy who's fixing things, working in a pawn shop. And it's up to his granddaughter to help him find the magic. Look, the story is not this really wild, complicated story. It's pretty straightforward. But what makes this film for me? The acting is great. The scenery looks phenomenal to me. They sing in it, they dance in it. I was dancing. The animation was great. This is actually my favorite David Talbot movie. I'm like, David, you moved into the big times. Your thoughts, Katya?
I mean, I love this for so many different reasons. We give Tyler Perry a lot of credit. We don't give David Talbot, who comes from a similar background, and in my opinion, makes better products. Character develops better. This is just magical, and I hope, and I keep putting it out there in the universe, that this becomes a Christmas tradition, a holiday tradition. The little girl amazing. The music, fun. It had like, it made me think of like, you know, when I looked at Keegan-Michael in that, you know, Green, it made me think of The Wiz,
Yeah.
that type of influence. And I think we need that right now. You know, we talked about, most of our movies that we talk about are not family oriented, but the holidays and the cinema experience, whether that's at home or in the theater, is still a family experience. And this is something where I feel like you can get your older kids and your younger kids, and it bridges the gap. I love this. I loved everything about it. I love the costuming, the details with the hair. I love the fact that we're doing period pieces for us, because again, I'm like, Black people, we can we have some joy during the 1800s or whatever the heck this is supposed to be? And again, it made me think of Dickens, all the things that I love. And again, kudos again, Felicia Rashad in there as a grandmother. All of that is, I love that. I watched it and I was like, you know what? I don't want to watch nothing else, because I'm like on a good high. I'm not going to tune into the news. I'm going to bed.
Yeah, no. I am totally with you on this one. Jonita, jump in here.
I have little ones, and so I have little ones too, and my 4-year-old and my 7-year-old. This is perfect for them to see, you know, see them, you know, people like them and their families, and you know, like their aunts and uncles on screen being magical and being inventors and doing all this stuff that, you know, you don't get to see a lot of places. I think the representation is excellent. It's amazing. And it's also, I think, for people who are not from our community, they can finally look and see our kids as a source of imagination, as a source of joy, of magic, and not just the, you know, the Black girl magic we talked about, but of that magical, you know, that sort of magic you have to keep, you know, that like that's attached to their innocence of sorts, you know, that you see with a lot of the kids like Matilda and Pippi Longstocking and stuff, that movies that when I was, you know, coming up. But we now have this for our kids. And I think it will go a long way if we can kind of start normalizing this, you know.
I totally agree. And I just want to take a moment though to talk about the entire cast. I think I think, Katia, obviously you just mentioned Felicia Rashad, but I love this woman who played Mrs. Johnston, Lisa Davina Phillip. Oh my goodness, I loved her role. And I could just stay and talk about her because it was a delightful. It was such a great role that she played. But Anika Noni Rose was good. And then you mentioned this, but the young lady who played Journey, her name is Madeline Mills. She was great. And then the little boy who played Edison, he was good. It was such a good movie. My daughter watched it. My daughters who are college age, they watched it before me. And then I watched it. One of them came down to watch it again. So I believe what you are saying, both of you guys are saying, is that this could be a tradition.
And it should be. And they have books. They have books coming out to go with it. David and Lynn, you know, when we spoke to them, they have books. And I think all of that it matters. You know what I mean? And I'm glad that we have. And I love the STEM portion of it. You know what I mean? To encourage our girls and our boys to say, okay, it's cool to do math. It's cool to know science. That's, you know, you can use it to do fun things. And the African dance aspect of it. I mean, it's just, come on now.
So let me say this to you, Katia. You had said about A Life Ahead, how they did not shame the sex workers. They did something very similar here with these kids who were different. The kids kept saying they were different, but you didn't see anybody teasing them. You didn't see anybody berating them. You didn't see them being scolded for being different and having that that interest in math and equations and things of that nature. They just said they were different. So I think they did something really smart here. They did the validation of saying, okay, we know some of you kids are different out there. They got that mind and they're thinking like that. But what we're not going to do is that we're not going to show bullying and make you guys look like you're different as well. You follow what I'm saying?
No, it's important because again, before we started recording, we talked about some of these misguided conceptions that are going on in our community, especially with everything that's going on right now. So this is a great way to counter that without it being preachy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's seeping into your brain, but it doesn't it doesn't feel like somebody's pushing it in there. And again, I'm so glad that you said that. I hate when we do that to our kids. Well, you're different, or you're weird, or why aren't you normal? Like, stop it. I always say, like, God doesn't make mistakes. I always say that to my daughter. God made you the way you are. You know what I mean? Appreciate all your quirkiness, all the things that are different about you as much as the things that make you fit in. And I think that's what I hope little kids look at that. It's cool to be different. It's cool to think outside the box. It's cool to believe in yourself. Because that little girl, like when he was really like, oh, this can't happen, she was pushing back. And that's a person of authority to her, and she loves her grandfather. But at the same time, she's like, no, that it's not true. And you don't have to be that way. And, I loved everything about it.
Absolutely. Jonita, I want you to close this one out and say whatever you got, because I like this a lot.
Yeah, I really love this one. I think I hope it becomes a classic. I mean, Katya, you just talked about that pushing back. There's another thing I loved is about you gave the kids, kind of a voice, an agency, saying your voice is worth something, even when adults are talking. Your voice is still worth something. So speak up, speak out. Don't be afraid. And I think I think this film has a lot in it. People are going to be talking about it and pulling from it. Every time I watched it, there was something new. Like when the male woman was doing her first song, the background singers were men. Usually background singers are women. And so I caught that around the second, kind of walk through. So every time you watch this, there'll be something new. It'll be a classic. I love it. I mean, yeah, everybody has to watch it.
Do more family. I hope David and Lynn do more family programming.
I think I hear you, Katya, saying, giving David his props. I do think, though, that this was the best put together film that he's made. This is not a criticism about the other films, but everything, the animation in this was totally. I know the animation was on point. We're going to mention people who were in this movie and not mention Ricky Martin. I mean,
yeah, Ricky Martin was the doll, right?
Oh my goodness, it was so good. This is not a watch it for me. This is a must watch it for me. What's your thought, Jonita?
Everyone must watch. Everyone.
Katya.
Oh, absolutely. Gather the kids, the kiddos, you know what I mean? Like, I know Thanksgiving break is coming up. While you're trying to cook that turkey and do the side dishes, put that on. It's on Netflix, so you ain't even got to come out extra $30 out of your pocket. Hit play on that, and you'll buy yourself some peace of mind.
I am totally in agreement. And last thing I'll say on this one is, again, find the biggest TV you have at home. Turn out all the lights, because the color in this is magnificent, and sit down and just be there for the ride, knowing that you'll probably watch it 2 or 3 times over Christmas season. Hey, that's it for us as it relates to movies today. And now we get to move into our section called The Issues. And we have a number of issues that we're going to talk about. The first one, Katya, you and I, you, myself, and Sean talked about this before, is that I think for a Vivica Fox movie, they do a launch party, and you were invited?
Here's my thing. I'm like, when I get these invites, I'm thinking to myself, did I miss it? Is the pandemic canceled? And to me, if you're going to do an event, there needs to be a serious section on what you're doing to keep us safe. Like, there was nothing in there about masks, temperature checks. Are we doing rapid COVID tests? Are you just throwing shingdings? Like, what is happening here? And to me, it's like, I get did you still want to have an event? But there's been so many amazing people that have done things over the internet, over Zoom, whether it is, handing out, like Apple has given us coupons for Postmates. We just talked about Jingle Jangle, where they did a virtual red carpet, and they said, okay, let's all gather, and we're gonna. Twitter parties have become the latest range. I mean, like, so, like, and again, no disrespect to Vivica Fox, but I'm not trying to die over her. Like, you got the wrong one. You know what I mean?
So Jonita, so we're like aghast that there are parties happening. Sean was like saying they had this big party in Kansas City, and they just moved from one venue to the next venue. I'm just saying that if the movie is not good enough for me to go to the theater to die for, it's definitely not good enough for me to go to hang out at a party. What say you?
Yeah, I'm not going. I mean, I've gone to the theater just a few times, but I've gone on off times when I know I'm going to be the person in there. And I'm not even kidding. And then I did go to a drive-in screening.
Keyboard drive-in?
Yeah, it was a pop-up drive-in at Lincoln Yards. They did something, and so I went there, and that was pretty safe. They had, the precautions, the masks, everybody sitting in the cars, and it was really safe. Anything other than that, the drive-in is as far as I'm going to go to an event for you. Like you said, I'm not dying for anybody, and I'm not seeing a movie worth dying over this year.
Yeah.
I can wait a few weeks for. I mean,
I feel you. I feel you 100% on that. And talking about dying, unfortunately, segueing to I could not find Alex Trebek in a movie. I couldn't see that he was in one, but that was my guy. So I just could not have this session without saying something about Alex Trebek. My kids laughed at me when they were younger because I would tape or run in the house to watch Jeopardy. And if I got 4 answers right out of the whole show, I was like the man. I was like, oh yeah, I'm smart as all get out. I just think Alex Trebek was an American icon, and just wanted to mention him on the show. Any thoughts you guys have on him?
I mean, I think we all felt that way. I think you really felt the day you got a final Jeopardy, and I'm not talking about the celebrity one. I'm talking about the regular. You're like, I am smart. I can do this. You know what I mean? And I think he made you want to learn things. Again, not in a way where he's being preachy, but you wanted to learn things. Your curiosity was piqued because of that show, and it's just, this is part of our lexicon, and a lot of us grew up with our grandparents watching Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. That was your night, right? You watched the 2 back to back and yelling at the screen, and then they're like, oh, you can't get the points because you got to ask it in the form of a question. So, I mean, again, we're talking about celebrating in this world of reality TV. We need more Alex Trebeks.
We do. Yeah. And I mean, he was a staple. And I'm me growing up, this nerdy, had all these useless facts in my head because I read so much. That was like the time that I shined, I was that was like my little place where, I remember my late grandmother saying, okay, let's just go ahead and let her have it. Go ahead. She got the answer. The final. So I would love when get to Final Jeopardy, that pressure, trying to get those answers. But it's a family thing. I think a lot of family memories attached to Jeopardy, and so Trebek is like, yeah, he's more than an icon, I think. Yeah, he's like almost like a pop culture marker for a couple of generations, I think.
Yeah, I'm really glad that both of you guys indulged me on that one, because I had to say something because it's my show. His last show will be on Christmas Day. Yeah, I will be watching, and thanks you guys for indulging me on that. Now indulge me on this. Waiting to Exhale is a new TV series. Really? Do we need that? Do we need to revisit this iconic movie? And when you look at the four people who played those four women, that it can't get any better than that. Do we? We got sisters Attica and Timby Locke and Anthony Hemingway penning this one. What's your thought, Jonita?
There are so many good stories out there that Black women have written. Why can't we pick one of those? I mean, why do we have to keep going back? What go back? I mean, Waiting Exhale, like you said, the women who played the roles. You know, Whitney Houston. You have these icons, Loretta Devine, and you know, why do we have to replace that and what they did? Why can't we go to, you know, any number of stories that Black women have written in the past several years and pick something, maybe modernize it a little bit. All of our stories have been passed over so much that there's a whole library of things that they can pull from and get some great stuff.
But think about this: is that's what they're doing. They're freshening it up. I mean, it's over 30 years ago. So what's wrong with doing that?
But there's nothing wrong with it, I guess. But to me, instead of picking up something that's 30 years old that still I can watch today, that still has a lot of stuff that still resonates, let that just chill and it just marinate still. It's still effective. It's still good. Let's go back and pull some of these stories that were passed over around that same period of time. Our stories were not told as often as they are today. So there's a lot of them that we missed, you know. So let's go back and pull one of those instead of, you know, just repeating and, you know, mixing up something that's still good.
So before I got to Katya, I had to change my background to something more vacation-y because Katya, come on, this is good. This is a good thing, right?
No, because here's my thing is, I'm not the biggest Terry McMillan fan because the women to me are like, I need you. I'm like, I need you to write about some women that got their ish together. Like, you know what I mean? And to me, it's like,
no, I don't.
To me, it's like these women, and I'm definitely not interested if these women haven't evolved and grown from the ashes. You know what I mean? My other thing is, I agree with Jonita. If you just look at books by Black women writing stories about women, friendships, all of that stuff, you know, there's so many new voices out there. Why not give that author the limelight that they deserve and then introduce us to new characters? I mean, again, we talked about, you know, there have been things like they're like doing a Black Saxonist. No, we have our own stories. That was them. Let them ladies have their moment and introduce us to new people and stop insulting the audience. You know, it's the same thing. I think First Wives Club was a really good show, but they didn't promote it properly. That is a good example of how they recycled something that did turn out to be very well done. But instead, we're getting pushed sisters on us, which is an inferior product, which is nowhere near as good because, again, you don't have a woman writing it. Whereas with Tracy Oliver, you have a woman writing it, developing these characters, giving us in depth.
But come on, Katya, come on. We getting two sisters writing this piece. And so this has been a criticism. This has been a criticism for some time. Like, let's get some women writing this stuff. So they take a story, they update it, they modernize it. Did you have a problem with, which is going to be our next thing with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? No, you didn't. You told me that you liked the different angles that they were taking on that.
Direction. To me, it's like, I would be interested in this if these new women were their daughters or something like that. We not get introduced to the second generation. But if it's the same women that we met 30 years ago, then no. If it's supposed to be the same type of women, except now they're wearing 2020 clothes and they're doing 2020 situations, then no. But if you're saying, okay, this is the niece, cousin, sister, whatever, you have their daughter, and saying, okay, we want to see how the decisions and choices affected them and how they deviate from their mothers or from the previous generation, okay, then I'm on board. But if you basically just giving us these women in 2020,
I got you, Jonita. I just in case you had something else to say on it, I think you dropped the mic. You like, nah, but anything else on this one?
Well, it's just, and I also want to say these type of movies as well, this messiness that Katya doesn't like. I think that there's a whole genre for that. But when you do tap into that messy women's drama that never takes them anywhere, no, there's no growth. There's only so far you can go with that. It's not cinematic greatness; it's entertainment purely. And I think it has its moment, and we need to just leave it where it is.
So I'm going to deviate here because there's two more topics that I really wanted to talk about, but you guys make me want to ask this question. So I didn't love Waiting to Exhale as a film for a couple of reasons, but mainly because there were no good men in the movie. And people argue me this all the time. They would say Wesley Snipes' character was a good man in the movie. The hell no. Let me tell my wife that I slept in a bed with another woman, but I didn't sleep with her. Let me go home and tell my wife that, and she'd be like, yeah, you're a good man. Gregory Hines' character, yes. But the rest of these guys really look bad. But this is what my brother told me. He said, your problem is that you don't want to accept their story. This is Terry's story. The problem I think that Black people have with these types of movies is that we don't have such the breadth and depth of stories told about us, that we have a problem when this story, which could be a true story, which could be a true depiction of people's lives, is played. So today, I have a totally different viewpoint of this. I'm like, she did a really good job with that movie. Excellent job. I just want to see some other stories. And so I don't dislike that movie as much as I used to, because my mindset was, why didn't she tell the story where the men were good, and I was trying to amplify that and have that everything in that movie right. But that wasn't her story. So I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on that, because this is a dude talking.
That's how she writes, though. If you read her Disappearing Acts, all her books, it's always about some woman that's picked the wrong dude, right? And her arc is like, she either learns from it or it ends up so-so. Do you know what I mean? And whether it's the main character or it's the sisters within the relationship. I mean, I sometimes have to ask myself, you know what I mean? As a woman who's of maturity now, like, we all made mistakes in relationships. But at some point, if you're 50, 40, and you're still dating the wrong type of guy and expecting a different type of result, then you're losing me. And that's where she loses me as a reader and in her stories. Because to me, it's like, you cannot go through, if you are somewhat together adult, forget man, woman, you cannot tell me that there isn't some type of growth. If there isn't some type of growth on your part to choose better friends, to take agency of your life once you hit 40 or 50, then you need to go address that hurt in therapy.
So this is my problem I'm having, and Jonita, I'd like for you to jump in. This is my problem I'm having with what you said, Katya, is that I know some of these people. Still today, I know people who have not grown, who are still picking the wrong person, men and women, who are still treating women in a very, very negative way. So now I don't hang with them because I've grown. So the way in which they treat women is just, I can't be around you. I can't hang out with you. So I don't buy that. I buy that that's her story. That's the thing that she sees. But Jonita, jump in here.
To me, her stories, I mean, I see her stories as really happening. And, like Katya said, they are, these women are not the most responsible. But to me, it's just like listening to some gossip, hot gossip. That's all Terry McMillan stories are to me. It's just, pull up the seat, grab some popcorn. It's just entertaining for the moment. Look at what this child is going through. It's just like my sister called me. They said, well, cousin so-and-so did. That's what her books are like for me, or her movies. her movies. I don't read her books much anymore. I have found that I've grown up from that, and I'm like, I don't have the time for that. But the movies though, I can still go and watch Waiting to Exhale, every once in a while, and be like, okay, yeah, I can see people that I know in this, and
That's good.
so I think they have a place.
So for both of you guys, really, in your movie palette, Terry McMillan doesn't really fit into that for both of you guys.
No, I'm 50 now. I don't do stuff in 50 that I did in my 20s, and that's how I feel about these women.
Okay.
Like, we have lost, like, exactly what Juanita said. That's cool when we in the barbershop, in the salon, and we kiki and a kakan, but right?
Yeah,
but
it feels like.
when I think of myself, this is what I mean. I think it's time for us, because we've gotten so many different versions of these types of women, these sisters right now, which makes you want to pull your hair out, that it's time for us to have the other side of that, the together woman, what it's like to navigate that world, what the challenges are, because people don't expect us to be women that have our ish together from top to bottom. They expect us to be the hot mess. Give us the other side of that.
That's it right there. That's the reason why we shouldn't have this movie remade, is because we've had enough of that. That's all the stories they were buying, were stories where Black women were a mess. You're a mess, or you're aggressive, or you're the best friend, or whatever. We need to focus on other parts of us now.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys, I think we might actually make it to my other two topics, because basically what y'all saying is y'all are woke. And guess what? Woke got a second season, y'all. What y'all think about that? I'm gonna tell you, this was a quirky show that actually landed with me. I was really surprised that I was like, I feel where y'all going with this, and I actually want to see what the next thing is going to happen in this series. So I'm actually glad that Woke got a second season. Thoughts?
I agree. You know what? There are Black people like that who were living in their bubble. They're like, I know this stuff is going on, but it's never happened to me. Like, it does drive me a little bit crazy when I hear prominent Black people that have a platform, like Jason Whitlock, try to explain, justify, and use things like religion. That's like a no. And, just because something hasn't happened to you, or because you haven't seen it, doesn't make it so. And again, Black people are not monolithic. And for whatever reason, some of us have experienced more of a harshness than others of us, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. I've never been to Mars, but it doesn't mean that Mars doesn't exist. It's still out there. You know what I mean? We know space exists. I ain't never been to space. Probably will never go, but I know it's out there. So I think I love the journey that he's on, that he's learning things. And the crazy thing is, the person who's kind of like his guru is his roommate, who is really crazy, the crazy guy, but he makes sense, the most sense. The person that you think should not be leading the discussion is like, really? Like, you really are not, like, you just not figuring this out?
All right. So you feeling this, Jonita, your thoughts?
I really liked it myself. I mean, I'm quirky Black person here, so anytime I see people like me on TV, I really the weird person. But I really like Katia said, I really like that they showed another type of Black people, who has just been going about his career, going about his life, and just missed some of this stuff somehow, and now he's seeing it. And so I think it's speaking out to some people, and I love the comedy and the writing, and I liked it so much. And I was looking over here seeing if I had the book handy. I don't have it handy, but I got one of the comics written by by the comedian, and he's really funny. He writes about this life stuff all the time in real life, and so I think that this is the type of stuff, the new stuff, going back to the last conversation, instead of remaking mess, we can do stuff like this, new stuff like this.
All right. Well, I'm gonna push on because I want to get to this last topic, even though I had like 10 topics for us to talk about. And the last topic is I'm just gonna pick it out of the four that I have left because I have two women here. Michael B. Jordan, sexiest man alive. Come on, y'all, for real. Y'all buying that?
Have you seen the moons? I think okay. This is what somebody. So I have my little crush on Adam Driver, and I tell people as I've gotten older, the things that I thought were attractive on men were very superficial, and that's what it is. Because you're high school and you want to think the quarterback of the football team, blah blah blah, basketball guy, that's cute. But I find men that aren't traditionally quote unquote attractive more attractive, whether it's artsy crafty things, whether it's your intellectual, like I have a thing for Anderson Cooper. I know the man is gay, but still, you know what I mean? He's still eye candy. And it is because he's smart. You know, I feel like we could do the New York Times crossword puzzle together. That would help me finish that. You know what I mean? So I think with Michael B. Jordan, there's something happening with him. Obviously, he's easy on the eyes, but he's also growing as a man. To me, it's like if you're just, whether you're a man or a woman, there are a lot of good looking people. But once they start talking, all that starts leaving you. You're just like, oh.
I love that, Katya. I love that, and from a man's perspective, I love his growth. When you talk about that, I've had the pleasure of interviewing him a couple of times, and I like his thought. I think that he's thoughtful, and I like a lot about him. So I can absolutely see how that would make him look sexy, Jonita.
Well, I mean, I agree. He's thoughtful and really creative. Like really creative, and just some of the places where he's kind of stepped in socially and kind of pushed forward. I think that builds onto the sexy, for a lot of us, for me. But and just I've interviewed him as well, and just the it's the type of interview experience you kind of get with him. He's really concerned about what you're trying to get from him, and what you've gotten from his work. I mean, sometimes I've interviewed people who really did not want to be there, and they showed you they did not want to be there, and some of them told you. So
Yeah.
just to have someone who's courteous enough, who's like really thoughtful, and having an engaging conversation with just the press. And actually, I was at a table that was the Black press. It was like 5 of us, the only Black people there. So that was like a point of contention. That was like a point of conversation right there that I appreciated, that he acknowledged and pointed out. So yeah, I think the projects, just the social interaction, the steps where he's taken the leadership, I think it does factor into him, earning this title. And I did write about him for The Guardian, 2018, about him stepping into his leading man role. And the next year he did. So, I think it's really his time.
Well, excellent. Go ahead, Katya.
Yeah. My other thing is he's not afraid to have women lead in his production company. There are a lot of women in leadership position, and they're Black women. So it also goes, but again, he has a strong relationship with his mother, a strong relationship with his sister, and he also understands that he knows his looks can get him through the door, but he's not there for that. Like he'll flip the script on that. And I like the fact that he's not afraid, like, in Just Mercy, even though he's coming into it off of Creed and all of that as the bigger star, it's really Jamie Foxx's movie. And he wasn't uncomfortable taking a step back and letting Jamie rock out. So that tells you something about him as a man, his ego, being comfortable playing the bad guy. Everybody was rooting for Chadwick, but because of his performance, there were a few people going, you know what? If Chadwick didn't make it in that movie, I would have been okay with that,
Yeah. No, well, hey, that's good. Look, guys, that's the show. This is the Real Critic Roundtable, where Black critics come to discuss, debate, and have some fun. We did all that today, and we'll see you next time. Peace.